And welcome back to YouTube and Professor Simon. And thank you so much for watching the little film on the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Now, what's really interesting, first of all, the world, well, over 50 countries have now banned the MAX 8 from flying in their airspace, including the US, Canada, and most of Europe. But what I'd like to do today is to share the fantastic new information that people have written as comments on this YouTube channel. I've had comments from 737 pilots, airframe mechanics, people who write software, possibly people who work for Boeing. Just amazing. So here I'm going to go through the best of the comments, personally thank them, and read out some new information which you need to know about what is really happening with the Boeing 737 MAX 8.
The demand for something new, volatile markets, new competitors, cost control. You deal with challenges like these every day.
So the first question that I had is, why are airlines buying the new 737 MAX 8?
Why? Let's start with efficiency. The MAX uses 14% less fuel than current 737s.
I think it's all about money.
How'd we do that? Ingenuity. Ingenuity here, here, and here. Like our incredible new winglet. It's now even more advanced. It uses natural laminar flow technology. What's that? Here's someone smart to explain it.
Natural laminar flow technology reduces fuel consumption by controlling the growth.
Never mind, we don't have time for that. But the results? It shaves off even more fuel usage.
It is, in my humble opinion, very aggressive. I'll let you make your own mind up.
But what does all this mean when you're running an airline? It means for once, your decision is clear. The new 737 MAX.
R.D. Mercer. It appears with these two crashes, there is a disconnect, no pun intended, between the pilot and the machine. I wouldn't be surprised if the end conclusion is something along the lines of Boeing was wrong to minimize the significance of the new MCAS system in relation to how much emphasis and awareness pilots received as they transitioned from older 737 models to the MAX series. Clearly, pilots are not happy with how little training they have received on the topic, and I suspect it is in relation to the time and money it takes to pull pilots from the air and pay them to sit in classes and simulators. If Boeing had been more forthcoming with the airline companies, knowing that the company's training costs would be higher with this new plane type, the purchase price probably would have been lower per plane, or maybe even risk not getting as many planes ordered by the airlines. It all comes back to greed. C.S. Yip. Thanks for the good video. I made a similar guess last night after reading the news. I read somewhere Boeing aggressively marketed the MAX cost saving in terms of minimal pilot training. Boeing also stressed MAX should behave the same way as some current 737 models. Airplane 800. I have a friend that went training on the MAX 8. And he said the training was short and insufficient. It's all about saving money. Richard Smeets. As an aircraft mechanic, I can say human-machine interfacing can be a huge problem. For example, there's a lot of ancient engineering and user habits in the world. Just look at your keyboard. QWERTY was invented so the hammers of the typewriter could not intervene with each other. If you redesign the keyboard, it is technically fine, but it will confuse the users when there is an emergency. If the human-machine interface is to blame, there is definitely a serious problem with the 737-8 MAX. Engineering you can change. Historic habits are hard to kill. Eve Hosgood. I have flown on 4 of these aircraft since October. They have much larger engines and are placed differently on the wings to a regular 737. This causes them to go nose up. The computer system combats that and puts the nose down. Not training pilots of this seems crazy. It's aerodynamically different from the original 737. And if the computer system goes wrong, the pilots will then obviously revert back to what they know. Jet Mech MA. The system being discussed on the 737 MAX 8 is called MCAS for Maneuvering Characteristic Augmentation System. What is it? The 737 MAX 8 has more powerful engines and they are mounted differently from the previous next-gen 737s. So when the pilot is hand-flying the aircraft at high power settings, it tends to climb nose high because of all this increased thrust. MCAS relieves the pilot's workload and counters this nose-up tendency by trimming the aircraft in a nose-downward trend. Not nose down, just downward enough to correct for the thrust pushing the nose up. What is suspected of happening is that the MCAS system is getting an erroneous input from the angle of attack sensor for some yet unknown reason, and the MCAS system is giving the aircraft nose-down commands when it is not needed. That's the suspected situation, as far as I understand it up to this date. Pete N. Thank you, Professor Simon, for your overview of what might have happened. Taking your info and wisdom into account, personally I think you are correct. According to information regarding the assembly of the aircraft, the engines placed on the wings were closer to the fuselage, adding more weight to that area. Possibly another reason for updating the computer software. I'm open to correction, but the new manual indicates there are 2 switches to override the computer stall warning. Possibly the pilots concerned were unaware of this, as you mentioned. Daniel Kierstead. I think you're onto it. I can't wait to hear what the NTSB and Boeing come up with. Probably a software problem. I know your secret. You're really Professor Emmett Brown, and you just got back from the future. Huh. Daisy Palmer. Thank you for this. As a commercial pilot myself, I appreciate content like this. So many people are quick to blame the pilots, but the autopilot is not as capable as some think it is. My friends think being a pilot is easy, but it's far from that. The autopilot is there to make sure the pilots don't put the aircraft through things it can't handle. Artie Sanister A. Boeing built an inherently unstable aircraft. The new huge bypass engine is mounted more forward and up higher than the old. In straight and level flight, the nacelles around the new engines are fine, but when in a 14-degree or more turn, they create lift. Thus the nose wants to come up. So they built this MCAS system to automatically lower the nose. So I suspect this system. Also, Boeing pushed that there was little differences in the old versus the new plane. So they persuaded the FAA to not require hours and hours of retraining. Not a good idea. So back to the MCAS. Lamont Houghton. This guy looks like an older version of Adam Savage from Mythbusters. Derek Kimani. Wise. CJ Ever. I thought you are Adam Savage of Mythbusters.